Okay. Well, I figure we can start in one of two ways. I'll lay them out, and we'll just feel out how the group wants to move forward. So one is that we can go through these slides. Each of them, talks about a separate section of the resume. We can go through that. Or if you have questions already that are specific to maybe some of the conversations you were having this morning, or if there's just something completely different that has come up this morning that you want to chat about, that's cool too. But either way, and the slides will be available. You can continue to go through them, and then I have a handout that will be helpful at least at one point during the slides too. So, what's your preference? What would you like to do?
I'd like to see what you got ready.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. So you see on the slide that we call this resumes and CVs. Sometimes the difference between the two is only semantics. A lot of folks use the terms and aren't 100% sure why they would use one over the other. And so sometimes that causes a little bit of panic in people who have never created one or the other. And I'm here to say that there is no need for panic, and that because usually it's a semantics issue, that a lot of the basic rules that are true about resumes are also true about CVs. And we'll talk just a little bit about the difference between the two, but mostly what you care about is how do I tell a story on paper that's going to get me to the next step. And that's definitely what we'll be talking about. So, Thank you. This slide is important because you've got to know that a resume or a CV is never going to get you a job. It gets you to the next step. Right? It would be a rare occasion that someone would look at your resume or CV and say, that's the one, let's do this, without having a conversation. But it certainly is true that this document can keep you from that next step. You want to make sure that you put as much effort and energy and intention into a resume or a CV that you can, but its primary goal is to land you an interview. So this is, I think, what is most important to know about the differences between the two documents. Almost always a CV is longer than a resume, and that's because the environment that you would use a CV in is mostly academia. And so if you're going to be a faculty member in the classroom or in a library, people care about all the details of your academic history and any work experience that's particularly relevant. So the longer you work, the longer it gets, and there is nothing wrong with that. A resume is shorter, right? We're talking just about the pertinent information, and some of the things that are important to your academic story are not as important to a professional story outside of academia. So that's the difference there in length. The content has to do with why it's long, right? There are things that you would include in a CV that just don't always belong in that resume, and those usually have to do with things like research projects, papers published, presentations, sometimes courses that you've taken. And the resume, it's almost always focused just on experience. And a lot of times that's paid experience, though you all have certainly experienced things you've done not for pay that have tons of skills embedded in them, right? So those things can belong on the resume too. And then the purpose, I think the CV in the academic world has more purposes than just employment. Sometimes it can help boost the the profile, if you will, of an academic department or an institution, and so those things become important even after you've landed your opportunity there. So having an updated CV is always going to be important, even if you feel secure in your work and you don't want to leave for quite some time. It's important to keep that updated. Questions about this? Between the two?
No, so far so good.
Great. Okay. So the ingredients, these are things that you already know. Contact information, absolutely. Education, always. Experiences, whether they're work, volunteer, or leadership. Skills and abilities, and that's the tricky part we'll spend some extra time on. But these are the ingredients. No matter whether you're talking resume or CV, these are the things that are included.
Oh, I had a question about for the contact information, how do you really have to have an address on there?
It's a really good question. So in a moment, there will be a slide dedicated completely to that contact information. And we'll dive into that a little bit more because it's an excellent question that you are not alone in asking. It's newer to the theme. Okay. So some basic rules: don't use a template. It's the easiest way to do it, and it's the worst way to do it. There are several reasons why we don't want you to use a template. One is, and you all are pros at sifting through information, but a lot of people aren't. You know that if you Google something, the first response is probably not always the best. So a lot of folks will Google resume, they use the first template they find, and that means everybody else is using the same one, right? And so that counts people out a lot of times. But for me, someone who, like, I appreciate, I would always start from scratch writing a resume or CV, and you all probably feel that same way. The reason to avoid a template is that they're maddening to work with. You don't have a lot of control over the format, and it causes you to be filled with rage sometimes when you just want to take away a line or take away a space and you can't do it because the format is predetermined for you. We want you to avoid personal pronouns. We know these documents are about you, so you don't have to use I, me, my, we. Providing concrete details, context. This is something that we'll spend a lot of time on when we're creating the content of the resume. But this is the thing that we have to train our brain for, because human nature says, oh, I've got all this context in my head, you must also have it in yours. And we need to provide as much information as we can to break that down. Of course, we want to prioritize the information. And we want to use bullets for content, not paragraphs or walls of text. And that's about ease of readability, legibility. So there are two main formats for these documents. One is a traditional format, and this is the one that most people use. It is reverse chronological order. Sometimes, though, particularly if you are changing careers, if you are trying to make a case for why you're a good candidate for a type of role you've never had before, sometimes the traditional resume feels like it stifles you, it doesn't tell the story you're trying to tell. And in those cases, a functional resume can be more appropriate. And a functional resume allows you to focus more on skill sets than job titles. And so you probably can't read what all of that says, but there's contact information, there's a tiny profile, and then it says professional skills and abilities directly under that, and there's skill sets that are titled, and the person has gone through to say, these are the things that I've done that fall under this skill set. And then later in the document, there's just a list of the job titles. Right? That's where I did all of those things. But this allows you to shout from the get-go. I've got the skills that you're looking for, and I want to make sure you see them. But if I gave you my traditional formatted resume, you might say, oh, this has nothing to do with what you would be doing in this role. This way you've done the work for them and you told them, no, you should listen to this. Okay, so the contact information. This is where the question comes in. People are always like, why would we go over this slide? I know my contact information. This is unimportant. But a lot of mistakes can be made in the contact information portion, so it's important just to say these things out loud. So you know your name, but there are a lot of things that could be different about your preferred name than your legal name, and you want to make sure that if you use a name that is different than your legal name, that there is some way for an HR system to match the application to your documents. Just paying attention to making some sort of connection, whether that is in parentheses or using your first initial, even though you go by your middle name or another name, that's important. So the address. You probably bring that up because you're like, do I want to put my whole address on a document? When we're exchanging so much of this information electronically, it can start to feel worrisome to put out your street address on a resume or a CV. And so a lot of people have gotten away from it. And people will either list just the city and state, or they'll get rid of it altogether. There is some, there's potential for an employer to make a judgment call about whether or not you're a feasible candidate if you're 4 states away or half a world away. They don't want to put in the money necessarily to fly you in for interviews. And so sometimes your location can work against you, and sometimes it can work in your favor. And you have to make a decision about what is ideal for you. There's no rule I can tell you that's the best thing to do. But it's totally fine to just list city and state, and in some cases it can be fine to not include any of that. Because nobody's going to be mailing you anything anyway.
Yeah, and it's like privacy concerns about like how much information I'm sharing about myself.
Exactly.
Would a PO box work just as well? Okay.
Yep.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and you know, as the work world, as society, as everything evolves, the need for some of this information changes. Because if HR wants to send you something, they're always going to do it based on what you filled out with them, application-wise, never, you know, what's on your resume, very rarely what's on your resume. Okay, so the phone number, it used to be true that a lot of people had ringback tones on their phone, right? So I would call you, and you'd have a song set up that is like my waiting music, waiting for you to answer the phone. And it was happening quite frequently with undergraduate students, and that's the first impression, right? So an employer calls and it's like, what is this music? And there is not a song on the planet that is soothing to everyone. There's just not a song, right? So we advise that if there's music attached to your phone number, get rid of it, get rid of it. Along those lines, call yourself and see what it sounds like. What does your outgoing message sound like? Because this is the first potentially verbal impression that an employer will have of you. So it was true once about mine that I sounded like I was in a wind tunnel. No one could really hear what the message said. So if an employer is calling you for the first time, they have no idea if they reached the right person. We also ask you to remember that if your outgoing voicemail just says, you have reached 828-773, that there's also no way to be certain that that's the right number, even if it matches the one on the resume. So we ask you to leave some sort of verbal outgoing. And then finally, your email address. There will be a point where you lose access to your UNCG email address. So think about that. We encourage you to use a personal email address, but we want you to set it up in a way so that it's as professional as a personal email address can be. Mine is meganleewalters@gmail. So you want to leave any like huge language out of your email address. But maybe you have something connected to your profession there, right? Morgan Pruitt librarian, whatever it is, because that's identity too.
I was just telling him, and Kyle wasn't here, but I was just telling him about the alumni account email that you get. So you can sign up for that.
Yeah, I had a community college student in a business writing class, and I had to explain to him not to use bigot777@gmail.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was trying to.
Yeah. And you just,
Well, he was tall and heavy, so he called himself bigot.
right, and what could be wrong with that? Yeah, yeah. If we have to level the playing field at every possible moment. Any opportunity for someone to make a personal judgment is an opportunity you don't want them to have. So take it all away. Your name, finally, should be the biggest thing on the resume. Shouldn't be anything else that's bigger than your name. And you'll see here that there's, an option. If you have a LinkedIn account that is active, that is full, you can absolutely include your URL there. And then if you have a portfolio or a website, you can include those things there too. Any questions about this? I'm Megan. I work in career and professional development. Nice to meet you. It's surprising how much time we can talk about this. You're like, I know my phone number. Okay, objective profile summary. If there were a controversial topic in career development, this is the topic. People are like in one camp or another about whether this is appropriate to do or not. And what I will tell you is that at the end of the day, you have to decide if you're going to do it or not. If you're going to use an objective or a profile, make it count. Real estate is expensive. And if the objective or profile or summary is the first thing an employer sees and it's too general or it's boring or it doesn't hit the mark, they'll stop, right? So you have to think a lot about what you would want to include here. If you submit a resume or a CV to someone, your objective is to get that job. You don't have to say that that's your objective, right? It's said for you. So if you have included a LinkedIn URL on your resume or CV, you've probably already done this on your LinkedIn summary. You might not need to do it again. It would be repetitive. Y'all have any feelings? Do you have an objective or profile? Have you seen one that worked or bombed?
I don't like them.
Don't like them, there you go.
Yeah, I've heard from different career service people.
Yeah, yeah, it's maddening.
I've gotten the job and then looked back at my resume and saw that I'd forgotten to put one on there. And then I was like, oh, I guess it's not really that necessary.
That's all. Yeah. The point you made, like some people have said, yeah, you should do it. Some people have said, no, you shouldn't. That is one reason that professional documents are difficult, because it's so subjective, right? There will be things that I continue to say while we're together today that you're like, somebody else told me completely different, right? And so you have to take those things into consideration. My work to provide you the why, and then for you to make a judgment call on your own. Yeah.
Is it more, would you say it's more for like leadership? I mean, it doesn't have to be, but like leadership positions, if you tell leadership, like if you were like entry level or something, would it, I mean, is it a criteria for using them?
I don't think that there's a formula that can answer that question, but I will say that the longer a document gets, the more diverse your experiences are, the harder it is for the first thing an employer reads, like a first experience, to tell your whole story. So if your experiences are incredibly diverse, or you're trying to make the pitch about a certain skill set that you have that you think is hidden later down there, then this can be helpful. But it's the same method of writing a newspaper article. People stop when they're done, and you just want to make sure that unless it's excellent, this isn't where they stop. And you don't know.
It's sort of like an abstract.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Not that that's where we stop on articles, right? Okay, so the education section. Your full name of the institution, The location can be helpful. Sorry, I have this Google Slides thing that's happening to me, but
oh yeah, it says weird stuff.
sorry.
Right back down there.
In the corner.
Yeah, well, it's like the formatting, that my education section should all be in that box, but I've done something, I did it on purpose to show you, you really gotta take a look before you put it in front of people. Sorry, I got distracted. Okay, so the full name of your institution. The UNCG is a really good example, because we have an internal name, UNCG. We have an external name, UNC Greensboro, and we have a name that was more popular about 18 months ago, the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And so there's some confusion about what is the right thing to do. I feel that confusion because I'm in it every day and people are talking about it all the time. External employers probably aren't thinking about it that way, so you won't have to really be concerned. But can you think of an example of a university or college that has a formal name and then a more common name?
ANT.
Yeah, great example.
I went to Western.
Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
East Carolina, a lot of people think it's Eastern Carolina.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
do that all the time.
yeah.
That's not it.
It's not Eastern, no.
Yeah, I knew somebody who was applying for a job there, and I was just like, make sure you don't pronounce the T.
Yeah.
Because it's East Carolina.
That's right.
Yeah. So you do want to be cautious here, and be formal. You want to use the name that is most appropriate, especially if you're applying somewhere where no one's heard of UNC Greensboro before. You want to provide some context so that they know. Include your thesis or dissertation title, and when appropriate, your advisor. So my dissertation chair is well known in the early education, special education world, less so in higher education. So I probably wouldn't use his name when I'm applying for work at the university level. But if I were applying for an opportunity where anyone had ever done any research in autism, I would always list him, right? Because anything that you can do to help yourself, you should do it. And then graduation date is a tricky piece of information. If it is recent or it is very soon, it can be helpful to include that information. The farther we get away from graduation, the more likely it is that that graduation date is going to be used to help someone figure out how old you are. And that's good or bad, depending on where you sit. But I will tell you, every single time I hire a candidate, I don't even mean to, and I do the math to figure out when did they graduate from undergrad? And then I make an assumption that I know their age, and there is no way I can, right? So you'll think about that, especially the longer you're in your career. Yeah.
How big a deal is the thesis title? I don't think I've ever put the title of my thesis on my resume.
You want to use it when it works to your advantage for sure, but there are also some programs that might require a thesis or a dissertation and those that might not. And you, because there's a little bit of clout that comes with that, so my master's degree didn't require a thesis, so anyone who did it was like, I'm putting it there because I want people to know I did it. So it's about the value that you feel that it adds. A good question. Another one I don't have an answer for. What are you doing here? Yeah.
I was wondering, like, is it the more you have, employer has to dig into the resume, they gotta be like, well, like the first couple minutes they see it and they're like, that's the top.
Yeah.
Not be too complex.
Yes. Yeah. So you want it to be, if you're going to include a lot of information, which you need to include enough information, you want it to be simple to read, as clear as possible. Use as much of the page as you can to avoid what you're trying to avoid there in that comment. Yeah. GPA doesn't really matter.
I was going to ask you about that.
Is it optional?
To employers, yeah, a lot. It's rare that an employer will say, we're only going to hire you if you have this GPA. Internships, it comes into play, but full-time employment is less frequent, unless it's like a cohorted trainee program or something like that. And then coursework. This is, it's completely optional, but you'll think about how much value is it adding. You want to talk about specific coursework if it has given you a certain skill set that none of your experience has given you, because you want to be able to tell the story. I'm ready for this work. And then if there is something particularly noteworthy about the curriculum in the program here that is different about the curriculum at another institution, right? So at UNCG, you take this class and that elevates you as a candidate, then you would want to include that too. More questions about this? I scared someone off. Oops. Oh my gosh, it's happening again. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's not you. It's not you. I'll send you a PDF copy so you know what we're Oh, someone's professional.
Oh,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was listed as being.
Hi. Hey, how are you? Good. Come on in. Take a chair. Let's have all these chairs are. If you're listening at home, sorry for the, just took a moment to move around. All right. So now, just briefly, all of the experiences that are on your document should have these 5 components. What was the title that you held? What do people call you? Where did you do it? Company, institution, organization, whatever the kind of organization you're with. The location is important, city and state. And it's important even when you think it isn't, because there are people who won't know where this thing is. And if they want to do more research, you want to allow them the opportunity to do it. And because there can be organizations that share a name that are in different locations. That helps provide context. You want to include the date range. The thing that comes to mind for me when I'm trying to figure out what number is associated with what month is when I'm buying something online and I'm trying to figure my credit card expiration. And I'm like, what number is September? And I have to just file it. I say that because I would encourage you to use the name of the month, not the number of the month, when you're including this information. And you don't have to start with a specific date, but month, year, 2-month year is helpful. If all of your experiences follow an academic calendar, you can also use that language, but I would not vary it. So if you're talking spring 2012 in one category, I would not switch then to January 2012 in another category. Make it consistent. And then finally, the meat of it, where you want to do your work, is in the description. Your duties, your skills, your achievements. So this is where you were hoping we'd spend all of our time. You're like, finally, we made it. Okay. So when you're describing an experience on your resume, our instinct is to say, okay, I answered phones, I talked to people, I shelved the books, whatever. And those are tasks, and you want to talk about skills, right? So yes, the tasks are important, but what did you learn, or what was a result of the way you did it? How do we talk about the impact, not just the task that you did? So again, we want to use bullets, not paragraphs. Use strong language to start each of those bullets. I've got a handout here that has the categories of skills and the kinds of language that you can use to describe those skills. And then the back side of that is a list of some of the section headings that you might have on your document. So that can be helpful, especially if you're feeling stuck about what to say. You want to use correct tense. Everything in the past should be in past tense. Natural, okay. Anything that's current can be in present tense or past tense. But this is a detail that is really easy to miss. That you're updating your resume and you forgot to change it to ED on one of the bullets. So just make sure you're spending some time focused on that. Especially in your line of work, you want to remember how important attention to detail is. And so this document is an example of your attention to detail. Elaborate, provide context. So let's talk about this one for a minute. Do you have, can you just tell me what kind of work environment you want to be in, a particular kind of library, particular kind of librarianship you are stoked on?
Academic library.
Academic library.
You mean public library?
Public.
I just want to catalog things.
Yes, okay. Please let me catalog things. Got it. Where are you? I think to be objective. Ah, yeah.
But I'm never there.
I love it. Okay, so this might be difficult to do, but take yourself out of, like, have an out-of-body experience for a moment and forget all of the information you've learned about libraries. So think, how does an outsider experience the word library? Right, so I say, I worked in a library. What are words that you think people might use? What is that? Books, quiet.
Old ladies with fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah, old ladies.
Low impact.
Low impact.
Kind of boring.
Boring.
Like cats and sweaters and like.
And they're all sitting around reading all the
Yeah,
There's
time.
nothing
like-
boring about
Like they're not like, yeah, like we think these are positive,
Yeah.
but then they would say that like they have negative connotations for all of this stuff.
absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, like workplace cardigans.
Yeah, so in addition to not just the words, just the feeling that those words is always negative.
Okay. All right, come back home. We can feel positive about these things. Get back to your bodies. Okay, great. That exercise of remembering how others might read what you've written is so important. I'll give you an even more basic example of that. Has anyone in the room ever managed a cash drawer? You've worked at a job where you managed a register? Ooh, you got stoked about that. Okay, so can we just go around and so when I managed a cash drawer, I started with $50 in my drawer. How much was it, like your starting amount? Do you know?
50.
50.
How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
You never did it?
I never did. They asked me to leave.
You leave that off. What about you? Did you ever manage a cash drawer?
Yeah. Like, you mean like start with?
Yeah.
Like how much was in there to start?
Yeah.
It was a lot. I worked at a convenience store, and there was a lot of money. Like I had to empty it
Regularly.
a couple hours.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
selling lottery tickets.
Yes.
Very glamorous.
You have a lot of change in there. Yeah. Okay. So when let me say, when you write about your experience managing a cash drawer, and the line says managed a cash drawer, I read that and I think that she had $50 in her drawer, because that's how many I had in my drawer.
Right.
Okay, so if we bring it to something that's more realistic, you're describing what you've done in the library using language that I don't have in my repertoire yet. I read that, and I think about the size of the library I worked in. I think about the daily patron count in my library, the square footage of my library. And we've got to make sure that we don't leave room for interpretation. We say as much as we can without being verbose, right? You're use the context that's really critical. And so where it says, elaborate, this is what we mean, right? We want to provide as much context as we can, whether that's about dollars, size, age of patrons, the numbers of people on your team, or it's about, you're saying you have communication skills, tell us what you mean by that. Not enough just to say communication skills. So if there were a formula for creating a bullet on your resume, this gets you there. What is a verb that you can use to describe a skill set? You start there, and then you talk about what you did or what you currently do. And then you wrap it up by adding some sort of value to that. Why did you do it? How did you do it? Or what was the result? That's a lot of information to stuff into one line. But if you do it well, there's no reason anyone would ever need you to write in paragraphs. You've done it. You've told us exactly what we need to know. So if there's something on your document that you're like, oh man, let's give this a go. We can team create that right now. If you'd like to just talk through one example on your resume, is anybody into that? Yeah, let's do it, Morgan.
So like teaching like 4 classes at like freshman writing. But it's hard to quantify like the numbers in total because I can't remember, like it changes. Like sometimes it was 80 students a semester and sometimes 20 students.
Yeah.
But you do know how many sections you taught.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one way I quantify it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's hard to, even in the cash tour experience, like I know that there were at least $50, but it could have been 100. I will often describe that as 50 plus or up to 100, right? So that allows you to guess a little bit, but you're still providing some context about how many that could have been. That's really helpful in group sizes, ages if there's a range, percentages if you're making growth in something. Good question. So what else in there feels squishy to you about that example of teaching the classes?
So I was looking at the class example here, so I thought maybe like designed and implemented lesson plans in order to assist freshmen and sophomores in achieving course outcomes. So like course outcomes is so vague, so it's like what are those outcomes?
What were they?
Like who, does that make sense? And like with writing, you're not just teaching writing, you're also thinking, reading, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, are there tangible results to the university because of what you do? As an example, when I taught at a high school, we implemented new programs to teach developmental reading in every class. And as a result, we improved the No Child Left Behind score at the school by 1 letter grade, and then the next year it increased again. So, yeah, I didn't do that single-handedly, but I still put that in a cover letter or resume to show that I got results.
Absolutely, yeah. Another trick that you can use, if the work that you did or that you're doing, if you have access to the description for that role, a lot of times administration can do a better job describing what they hope is true because of this work, and so you can tap into that a little bit. Right, what was I intended to do in that role? And that can remind you of all the things that you did do. Yeah, because if you read a description, like a job description for sandwich artist at Subway, this is a whole lot more than making sandwiches.
Right.
But that's how people talk about working at Subway. So if you can tap into that bigger picture, the people who wrote the description usually know what that bigger picture is.
But for something like course outcomes, like that could be more specific and just saying something like critical reading and thinking skills or critical writing skills or critical something.
It could be either of those things. But if you are developing, if you're trying to get closer to CV length than perchance resume length, then maybe you have more bullets that describe what those learning outcomes were. But using the language of learning outcomes is important if you're thinking about who's reading that document if they've made mention of learning outcomes in their job description, something like that. But a CV allows you the room.
That's the one I have in the CV,
Yeah.
so that kind of makes it a little bit better. I
Yeah.
have to be a little bit specific, and because the links won't matter.
Absolutely. And if you're doing that, I don't want you to think, oh, well, if it's a CV and they're looking for one, they're going to read every word of it.
Oh, yeah.
That's still not true necessarily. So in each of your experiences, you'll still want to prioritize the bullets. And that might mean every single time you submit your document, you're copying and pasting them in a different order because one job cares about one thing more than the other. But yes, I think you just go for it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Is
Thank
there a
you.
max number of bullets, for each job description?
So one of the early slides in this talks about the difference between resume and CV. And in a lot of cases, it's only semantic. People use them interchangeably and they don't know why. If you're applying for something in academia, there's no magic number to bullets necessarily. If you're applying for something outside of academia, we will say that the magic number is about 3 to 5. And for me, even though I'm in higher education and will hopefully always be, I still stick to less than 7. But I think that's because I'm in career development. That's the only reason. Nobody else is doing that.
Is it consistent for each, like, if you
Yes,
have 5?
that is a really good question. Yeah, so I think it would be clear to an employer if one of your jobs you have like 7 bullets and another you just have 2, where you place the weight of that role. And you don't want to do that work for them if it's possible that they would see more weight in this other job. A lot of times you're making a decision about how many bullets you include by how many tasks you have, and that's not really the where you're trying to go. It's about what are you good at if you have that job, or why were you so good at that job. So I would try to make it as even as you can, yeah. Unless they're totally unrelated jobs that you just are listing so that you don't have holes in your timeline.
I'm gonna add something.
Yes, please.
Just for a public library person, and only because I've got pretty decent experience in that, is you would want to look at the job description that they're advertising and reflect your bullet point specifically using the language that they're using, because often, like in a public library setting, that application and resume is going to be coming through a venue of HR that has nothing to do with library. So they don't really even care. They're looking for
checking the box.
Yeah. They're looking for, like, this is what we advertised for, this is what we're looking for, and you won't get an interview unless you have what they're looking for, and the easier you make it for.
I can work with that.
Yeah, and the same is true if a human isn't the first round, right? If an ATS, an asset tracking system, is looking at the document first, they're doing the same thing, looking for the exact language. And so a lot of times it's about just the word, one library chooses to use over another, one industry chooses to use over the other. It's the same meaning potentially, but a different use of word. Like in my work, some people are career coaches, some are career counselors, some are career advisors, some are career liaisons, and the everyday work is similar. But I would want to make sure that I'm using the one that you need to teach when I apply there. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
You mentioned quickly the not leaving gaps in your timeline. How important is that?
If there's different importance to different employers, so I'll just say that caveat, but if there is a 6-month gap, that's less concerning as a general rule than a 3-year gap, for example. And I will advise someone who is re-careering, or an adult student that I'm working with, or a graduate student I'm working with, to say, if there is a gap in time that has a really excellent explanation that has nothing to do with your work history, you can go ahead and say, like, just name it in a cover letter or something. Like, you'll see a gap. During that time, I was blah, 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 and move along. Because someone's assumption is usually going to be worse than the truth is. But if you're thinking about, like, oh, well, I've been working for 25 years, but only the last 7 are related to this work, I encourage folks to put the meat, spend time on the bullets for those most recent 7 years, and then maybe everything else just is listed, right? I was in this job for this amount of time, this job for this amount of time. So you're really just thinking about, it's hard because you can't remove yourself from yourself. But if you didn't know your story, what would be concerning and what wouldn't? If you were hiring someone, how would you read that timeline?
That's kind of that's a good question because it kind of piggybacks what I was going to ask. I went to Goodwill, they have career services.
Mm-hmm.
The person was telling me it's like a silo resume, like for older people going back to school, may not have worked in the field they're in school for, and it's kind of like you highlight your experiences rather than it's chronological, like a graduate who's coming out and they, it's more so highlighting what's relevant to what you're applying for, and maybe even in like bullets instead of like I have employment history like from, and like instead of it being like recent to old, it's kind of like highlight to the top things that are relevant.
Absolutely. And a little bit ago when we were talking about the education section on your resume and the benefits or the risks to including dates with your education, if a date related to your education kind of explains that timeline, then it can be helpful, right? If there is a gap in time or you had a change in career and it was completely unexplained, but it's connected to what you were in school for, then that just helps to tell the story a little bit more. It's tricky because a lot of times someone's going to look at this and they won't know anything about you except for what you put on this piece of paper and perhaps what you've written in a cover letter. And that's why you want to make sure it's telling as much of your story as it can that you want to tell. That's value added, yeah.
Do you have a sample of something about is it silo resume?
I have never heard that, but I wonder if sometimes I'll use functional resume, and I think it might be that.
Right.
I'll show it to you in a bit, but yeah, because it focuses on the skill sets that you have and that you have been building even when that experience wasn't so relevant. Yeah, absolutely. So you have a handout of this, so I'm not going to go over this, but on the opposite side of those verbs, there's a list of sections that you might include. Skills and proficiencies, this should never be a laundry list of what some people call soft skills, which is a misnomer, but if you are listing communication, teamwork, initiative, things like that in a list of skills, you're asking me to take your word for it. You're asking me to just, I've got it, don't worry about it. The place where you can prove it is in those bullets. That you're using language to describe what you've done that matches the certain skill set that's on that list, for example. So the skills and the proficiency section should be held for, hello. Yeah.
And language.
Wrap it up and y'all can, okay, you can, give some extra context where you, you're feeling. So some of these harder skills, the tangible skills that we're talking about are computer skills. If you have language proficiencies, right? If you're bilingual, trilingual, you have basic skills, proficient, fluency. If there's a certification that you hold, even if it's not relevant, sometimes it can be helpful to include a certification, served safe if you work with food, or something else that describes how to take a class and pass it. How to follow regulations that are set by a government agency, right? That can lend to your story. Yeah.
I've got a teaching ESL certificate. Would that be better here or in education?
If your document is longer than 1 page, education, because a lot of times this is falling at the very end of your document, and if it's longer than a page, it might get missed. A great question. And the value of that skill, that certification probably is heavier than the value of some of these others that you have on your list. Yeah, that's a great question. And then you see career-specific skills, proficiency, certification. So if there's a program that you use, some technology that you use that would be helpful to your work, this is ideal here. So you see some examples, computer skills. Microsoft Office, the Office suite, everybody says that's a skill. It's not true. Not everybody has that skill. If you say you have it, really have it. If you can read an Excel sheet, that is not proficiency in Excel, right? You want to be able to use all of the functions. So I never list it because I can only open them. Design, anything graphic or any of the Adobe suite, even if it's not in a job description, that is always valuable to someone. Sometimes to the point of getting taken advantage of, valuable. But if there's any chance that someone would need you to ever make a flyer and you have this on your resume, it's only good for you. Can you all think of any skills, proficiencies that are incredibly important when you're looking at resumes, you're trying to hire people, you would love to see in that list? All right, you don't have time to answer. Put you on the spot.
If you're applying for cataloging, you need to have down connection
Okay.
and RDA toolkit, all that kind of stuff. First, like this is one or two of you who might. One of you who will.
And the job description, like you mentioned before, is the cheat sheet study guide to this, right? If there's a list of skill sets that they're looking for and they're not described in bullets, but you have them, this is the place for them. We know this. Okay, so this is the last slide. We have less than 60 seconds. References. It's my opinion, and that opinion is supported by most of the employers that we work with, that your references should be on a separate document legally. If an employer wants references, either they're going to ask you to upload them as a separate document, or they're going to ask you to insert them into the virtual application that you're filling out. If you have a separate document, mirror your resume or CV. You want it to look like it matches with your other documents. So a heading can be similar, that's ideal. When you're listing your references, first make sure that they know. Don't just tell them that you have, ask them if you can, and help them out. Send them a copy of your document, send them a copy of the description, send them some information about why you think they're a good reference for you, what can they speak to your potential employer about that's particularly helpful. And then do your future employer a favor and offer some context. Who is this person? What is their current role? How do you know them? What was their connection with you? What is their title? What is their phone number? What is their email address? That lets your future employer know what they can get into when they make that call. Is this someone who supervised you? Is this someone who you supervised? Is it a colleague? And that gives them some context about what that conversation should look like. Any questions about this? Oh, and don't include references available upon request. Like I said before, your real estate is expensive, and this line is implied. If you're applying for a job with me and I ask you to give me your references, you're probably going to do it, right? I know that you'll do that if I ask you so. Any questions?
Outside of the thing, can I email you at the end and we can get these slides and post them on
Absolutely, yes.
the career research?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And our office can work with you one-on-one. We're happy to serve as an extra set of eyes on your document. And I encourage you to do that with someone who doesn't speak library language, for sure.
And that can be done on Handshake?
Yes, it can be done on Handshake. So you can upload your resume to our online career management platform, and someone will give you feedback on your document. Or you can work one-on-one with us. Yeah, you can reach out to me directly. You can make an appointment to meet with someone one-on-one. We can do that in person, on the phone, virtually, through email, web call, whatever you'd like.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now I've gone 2 minutes over.
That's okay.
Should I keep the recording going?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, yes. It's very fun to talk about this stuff with folks who are into it.
We'll make this.
Okay.
We'll say this.
Sorry about that. Sorry, you just interrupted. Oh my gosh, no, I'm glad you're here.
I know, I always did like the online classes at the end, so like I only got to see like the first 4 classes. And then the virtual.
So, I'm gonna wait for, I don't know where Dylan went. Does anyone know where he went?
Wandered off.
So, I'm not sure that everybody knows everybody else, so if it's all right, could you go around and just kind of introduce yourself and just kind of say like, who you are and like what you do, and if you want to share something about your story about like how you got into library, that would be great. Or how you got a degree and how that helped you, whatever.
I'll start. My name is Sam Harlow. I'm the online learning librarian at UNCG Libraries. I also am the liaison to public health education, kinesiology, and community and therapeutic recreation. I'm housed within the Research Outreach and Instruction Department, ROI. I got my master's degree actually from UNC Chapel Hill, about 10, give or take. So my first job out of I actually started in digital archives, so I was working on digital projects, and I had like temporary jobs managing grants. And then I applied for a job at High Point University, running their like kind of version of Digital Media Commons, and then like did a lot of other things. It is a small university, so we were kind of like a lot of different positions there. And then I actually ended up getting a job here in the School of Education doing instructional technology. I was the ITC, so I left libraries for a couple of years. Then that led me into my current job. So it's been every single job has been different. But this job I'm at now is pretty solid. I'm gonna probably be here for a while. So not trying to look for another job anytime soon. Kids. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Hey, I'm Mavis, and I graduated from this program last May. And I currently work as a business researcher at Charles Ayers Executive Search, and they're downtown in Greensboro. And it's not exactly library world, but it feels, my day feels like a reference interview every day, all the time. And there's a lot of overlap with what librarians do. And I first got into libraries in Germany, where I'm from originally. And I started working in a very, very small special library at the Federal Highway Research Institute of Germany. And I did a little bit of everything there. Their library only had logging on, had makeup books, things for friends. And then I went to college and studied library and information science in Cologne, Germany, which is a bachelor's program there. And there, I went to Duke Libraries for an internship and worked there for a little bit. And then I ended up here in Greensboro to my master's. And yeah, that's me.
I'm Jo Klein. I'm the GIS or Geospatial and Data Visualization Librarian, which is a mouthful at UNC Greensboro, and I'm also in the Reference Outreach and Instruction, Research Outreach and Instruction Department with SAM.
So ROI, I worked for the EPA for 3 years previously while I got my master's degree, also from UNC Greensboro. I just graduated from virtual component of this program in December 2018, super recent. So I was just in the whole, update your resume, apply for jobs. I was really interested in like digital archives. I did a couple of like archives, like internships, volunteer things at Elon. But then when it came time to actually apply for jobs, I was working with GIS at the EPA, and the GIS librarianship position opened up. So kind of worked out perfect. So I'm still learning the ropes. So this is my first library job, what it means to be a librarian versus a biologist, my previous degree.
So I'm Jen Worrell, and I graduated from UNCG in the mid-90s, maybe like 97, 98. And I was working at the Greensboro Public Library before I graduated. First couple of years, I worked at Jackson, and that's probably my most prominent experience with academic libraries. But I worked at Greensboro Public for 17 years, and I worked in a variety of departments. I started in their AV department with their film strips and discarded all of that, and then moved on to the reference department and did a lot of community programming, and then was their e-librarian, so their primary source of web development and research and working with community projects. About 10 years ago, I applied for a job in the school system, and now I work at Grimsley High School as their school library media specialist. And been doing that for almost.
I'm Megan Walters. I serve as the Associate Director for Career Development at UNCG and have worked on college campuses for about 15 years and spend most of my days helping students think through how to make the leap from one part of their life to another. And a lot of times that means talking about resumes, cover letters, interviewing, and telling the story of what they've been doing.
Thank you. So does anybody have any questions first?
I don't think so.
No, okay, I have questions. I just want to be polite. So my first question is, and we talked a little bit about a functional resume, but for someone that doesn't have experience in a library, but does have some experience and skills that would be useful in a library, like how do you talk about that, the best way to kind of convey that, whether that's on a resume like we talked about or an interview, so that the employer does see that like you can do the job, you just don't have that, you haven't had that title.
Mm-hmm. I've headed search committees now for UNCG libraries. I've been on them. I headed one in fall a year ago, and I don't know how everyone does it, but it's probably somewhat similar in that we take the job description, we take the bullets that are required, and we create a rubric, right? We go through your resume and your cover letter, and we grade, grade it. And at the top, let's say 6 get a phone interview, and then, we grade that, and then the 3 get that. It's very calculated in order to not, take personal opinion into it or anything. I mean, that does play when they come in, but until then, the way you get in the door is the resume and the cover letter, which I'm sure Megan talked about. So even if you don't have library experience, you want to take that job posting and go through it and see how you match, because that's what we're doing. But if it does say required 3 years experience in an academic library, we did put that there for a reason. So I just wouldn't apply to those, honestly, unless you have 3 years, and unless you could stretch something you've done in a 3 years academic library. But we don't do that for every job, we didn't do that for Joe's job, and that worked out great. So that's what I would say, is that if you could find the way that you match the job description, we are flexible on that. But to not ignore it, I did this when I graduated. I was like, they don't mean it. I'm great. They did mean it. And as someone who's not been on the committee, you know, we put that there for a reason, and we have to use these like kind of scales. Because I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but like we like for the science liaison job, we had even for something that specific, right, where we were really kind of looking for someone with science experience as well as some library experience. We had like 80 applicants, you know, so I mean, again, so we have to go through it. We give preference to the people who have the most in terms of that. Yeah, that's what I would say. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So for the science applicant, what was the most experienced person you remember?
I mean, maybe Megan, the person who we hired. Megan, the person who we hired has a BA in science.
Okay.
We like that. We didn't require that. We said that is a preferred. So some other people we interviewed didn't have that, but they had experience working in some kind of science library or center. One, we did, you know, to keep it confidential, we did, you know, phone interview someone who was the most experienced. She was currently working in an academic library. I think we're going to hear yourself, this is inappropriate to say. She had tons of experience, like published papers, had been working academic libraries here. She bombed her phone interview. Bombed it. Like, just really, she basically like blamed a lot of stuff on her employers. She like, just a lot of like red flag stuff off the bat. And I mean, even though she on paper was the most experienced person that we had in the pool, we immediately were like, no, like, so that shows you too. I mean, you know, getting to the phone interview is important, but don't just be like, I got this, because I'm the most like probably qualified person on paper. We grade that, and we consider it very importantly. So yeah, I mean, like I said, Megan has a science background. She had been working in an academic library, and you know, answered the questions appropriately on the phone interview, and then did a good job on the in-person. So you know, that was a pretty easy fit. So yeah.
I'm not working in a library, it's kind of outside of the library, but so I started this job, we were 4 people on the team, so one person had come to the team 3 months before I started, and the other ones were more senior, 6 years in and 2 years in, but both of the most senior people left 2 months after I started. So now that lady who started 3 months before I did, and I were the most senior people on the team now, and we did hire 2 more people, those people. And we were just also looking for, well, it's called business researcher, our job, and we look for anything that relates to research and, you know, how people say they've done this before. The MLIS is preferred for my job, but it's not required, but most of us do have it. Yeah.
And Charles Ayers will be at the career fair on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, they're all on all.
How did your last 2 hires go?
I'm sorry, what?
The last 2 hires that you did, have they worked out?
Yes, I mean, we're a pretty strong team now, and yeah, I mean, I feel like for the job that we do now, the MLIS, the mindset, research mindset of gathering information, and that's a huge benefit.
I don't know if it's one of the people that you hired, but one of our former teachers is now working there, and she went through the MLIS program and then kind of had to work her teaching experience as well as her internship that she'd done into relatable skills for that environment.
Yeah.
So it was kind of different, but she was successful in doing it.
It's not always one-on-one, but we look for like how does that translate, and you know.
Right. Yeah, working with, 17-year-olds for 7 years will give almost anybody the kind of background that you need to deal with. So if you're in any kind of public position, usually they'll take those teaching experiences to heart, as well as like retail. I mean, retail counts for a lot if you're successful and able to deliver customer service and demonstrate that. That's good anywhere.
We you know, I don't think it's appropriate to say, like, you know, we hired a student success librarian who's here and doing a great job. And, you know, she is more new to libraries, and she talked about her retail experience as, you know, like a positive. And we liked that was a good thing because she's going to have, you know, to talk to a lot of different departments in these different ways. And that was an example of someone who, like, you know, hadn't been able to get a lot of academic library experience, but she shifted that, and we, you know, we heard.
Right.
Like, you know, I think sometimes, you know, Megan knows more about this than me, but like, you know, like, it just depends. Sometimes maybe take it off, but like if it's a public facing job, you can take it off, but also mention it in your cover letter. Like, you know, there's like ways you could shift it if you don't have room for it, like if you did it a long time ago, but don't be ashamed of it. Like we like that. We like just for you to show that you worked with the public.
Yeah. I guess sort of like, this was going back to the silo resume I was talking about. Would you put it under like, say, a library job was happening, the customer service communication, you would kind of word that into that instead of a job?
Potentially, but I think it's about what priority was that given in the job description. Because an employer, it's not on accident how the descriptions are written. And so that should be that same truth should be for your resume. It shouldn't be an accident. It's the order in which things are written. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so, because I don't know how it looks on the other side. When I was submitting my cover letters, I worked at Starbucks for a year and a couple of other retail positions, and they emphasized on the job description a team-based kind of thing. So at Starbucks, it was one of our biggest things. You have to work as a team, or you're going to be running into people. Just as like food service, so you have to be able to work with people and communicate. So I put that in the cover letter. I'm not sure if I put it in the resume itself, because I wanted to highlight the university library, the student experience, and the GIS and data science experience. But I think I mentioned in my cover letter, like, you know, I have experience working as a team in retail, like in a retail food service.
And we read both the cover letter and the resume for the rubric we're creating. So if you can't fit it on one, but you do it the other. And like, again, like I know it seems like, oh, we put team-oriented on everything, maybe I don't need to address it. But again, if it's a bullet on there, we make it a part of the rubric. So we like for you to somehow show that you've worked in a team environment. And it could be like on your resume, being like, I worked at these places. But, you know, we do like it addressed. And I'm sure Megan said this, but we can definitely tell if you just use the same cover letter for every job. And we don't like that.
Yeah.
That's like immediately almost like you throw it out. Yeah, so you have to really learn how to recreate cover letters for every job posting.
I didn't bring the handout with me, but we have this one is about interviews, so I'll give everybody a copy of this one, but we have one of these dedicated to cover letters. And that's one of the things that we spend so much time on. Not only should you be at least editing it every time, but more heavily rewriting some of those body paragraphs, but also if you have the option, if it's only optional, do it every time, especially if it's a position you really want. Because if people are serial appliers, then they want to do it in the easiest way possible, and that usually means living off the things that are optional. And so that will automatically give you the leg up because you have put the effort in, for sure.
So I have two questions, one about cover letters and one about interviews. The one about cover letters for like an academic library thought, or I've heard like it can be 1 to 2 pages, or I'm just not sure, like 2 pages versus 1. I mean, it's
We don't throw out 2-page cover letters, but if you do a 2-page cover letter, like, make it count. You know, like, I would be annoyed at a 2-page cover letter that was telling me information that we weren't really asking for on the thing. Like, again, remember, like, we're getting 80 applicants. I mean, I'm saying like 80, but maybe like 50 to 40 have an MLS. That's still a lot for like a 6-person committee to read through, and we do read them. Like, you know, we take it seriously. So again, I wouldn't throw out a 2-page cover. I would be concerned if it went well beyond 2. Like if you were going 3, like, wow, you better be telling me something like really about it. Some people do go 2 though, and again, that we did not throw those out.
And I think for me, there have been parts in my career where I would have not written 2 pages because I didn't feel like I had that much to say. And the position I had more recently was I have more of a leadership role, and I needed to say some of the things that I said, all the things that I said. But, so it was the first time that I had written a letter that was longer than 1 page. But the thing that's so difficult about this is that a lot of people, I think it would be rare for everybody to feel the same exact way about every question that's asked, and that's part of the reason it's so frustrating.
Yeah, and academia, like, that 1-page CV thing is not real. Like, actually, I would be concerned if I was getting a lot of 1-page CVs, because we're looking for you to really kind of show us like a longer story, of what your experience is. There's no rules about that.
I think, and like for the cover letters that are longer than I was on the research committee so far, but remembering what I was reading for the applications we got, like the longer it is, the easier it is to be able to read. So the more summarizing in like the first sentence that you can do, the more scannability it has, the better it is. So because a lot of times what I would do, I would go through, kind of scan, highlight the main bullet points that we were looking for, and then organize them and read the ones that had the most highlights first, and then I would go through, and it didn't really, and I was there. The length didn't impact that much, but it did, it's harder to read.
And formatting can lead to that too. There are certainly documents that are harder to read than others because of the way they're spaced. So, the guy we have has a pretty excellent format,
Can I ask a question? Yeah. So do you use LinkedIn at all when you go through applications? Because I feel like that might be a huge difference from academia to the industry.
Yeah, we don't. Some people on their resumes include like Twitter handles, LinkedIn handles, things like that. If they do, I might throw it in. Honestly, I probably wouldn't start throwing that in there until we were down to the phone interviews. And I would probably only do that if they included a link to it. And then I would want to kind of know, well, why am I looking, if it was like basically just your resume, I'm like, then why am I here? So yeah, and like I said, when I'm going through to get us down to 8, I'm not going to everyone's link. I'm not going to LinkedIn, like plugging everyone in. We do, once we get down to 8, I will say in academia, if you've been in academia before, or even as an MLS student, we'll start looking at your LIS guides, your research guides, to see, like, again, what kind of, like, experience you have, like, design experience, like that kind of thing. So if you've made a LIS guide in your MLS, like I would say, be prepared that, like, we know how to use Google. So that would be more, to me, valuable than LinkedIn for academia. But again, if you include your LinkedIn handle on the resume, when we get down to a smaller number, I will look at it. But I would say, for me personally, I don't know what Joe feels like. I am like, it better be like worth it. Like, I mean, not better, you know what I mean? But like, how is it different than your resume? Because I'm trying to think of, I can't ever think of a time that LinkedIn swayed me.
I feel like if you're further along, so I haven't been far enough along in a search committee to get down to like only 8 candidates, so we stopped very pretty early. But I feel like I would probably look at LinkedIn, like if they're coming in person, or to look at like extra projects. But I feel like most of the projects that they want to highlight should be on the resume, or the cover letter already. And depending on the job, because if you're entry level,
that CV and cover letter for us are just so like that's how we
basically get interested, because it's like in my world, it's the opposite. Like there are a lot of people who will only apply in LinkedIn and not even send a cover letter, which I hate. But in my world, in the industry where I'm in, everything goes out. So if you're like considering applying outside of library world, I would say use that LinkedIn and use that space, like the space that you have there for your accomplishments and what you did in your job. So.
Yeah, for your job, did you have to have a 1-page resume?
So they advertised my job here through the program, and they wanted a resume and cover letter, which I just sent directly to my boss now. But they also had a posting on LinkedIn, and my other colleague who applied, we applied at the same time, and we both got hired, but she only applied through LinkedIn. She didn't write a cover
Yeah, I know that like in terms of my LinkedIn profile, I've gotten approached by people in the industries, but I've never gotten approached by like an academic library, you know, to be like applied to these jobs. In academic libraries, if they start asking you, I mean, in my career, people are asking you to apply. It's usually like networking, like you were on a committee with someone, you met someone at a conference, and they're like, hey, I know you do this job. You know, I think you'd be a good fit here.
Yeah. In the like public school system, do you feel like you as a person are scrutinized differently? Like, who are you in the community, or like, are people giving you a good Google search before they hire you to work for Gulf County schools, something like that?
You know, they do a police check.
Yeah.
So they're not really looking at that. And in fact, if your resume even is looked at before you get an interview, that would be rare. I would say the situation here in Guilford is so highly competitive for specific jobs, particularly high school. Not as much elementary, but you need to just know someone. You need to jump on it and get the principal to agree to a meeting before they even look at anything, and nobody's going to read it. So like, it's good to have that written well in there, but it's your other skills that are going to get you in front of a principal or a hiring committee. It's going to be using whatever networking ability you have for your past experience.
Guilford County Schools will also be at the career fair this Wednesday, but in a couple of weeks, on the 18th of March, there's an education and helping professions career fair specifically, and at that fair there will be over 80 school systems in North Carolina and beyond, and about 35 other helping industry folks. And because of exactly what you said, I think the initial student mindset is, oh, I'll go in the semester that I'm looking for a job because that's the time I can apply for a job. But if you're thinking about when you can network and when the ideal time is, it's maybe when the stakes are lower and you don't need that job right now, that you can make those connections there, reach out to them again, make sure you stay on the radar, things like that.
Yeah, in addition to that, that mindset of like getting the networking, as many times as you can put yourself in that situation of answering questions about your weaknesses, things like just whatever you can do, just start applying and getting there, because every time you go in and you sit there and you talk through it, you learn something. And so the next time, you know, I agree that low stakes is a very comfortable space to be in. Where you're like, I don't need this job, but just, you know, try it, learn what you get, meet who you meet, and then you've got a connection there.
And similar to what you're saying, I think I have found that sometimes librarians are shocked at this when they come in for interviews. If you get an interview, be prepared that you will be asked the same questions over. I mean, I think a lot of times librarians are pretty shocked. They're like, well, I just answered this. And you're like, too bad. Like, it's a different committee. It's a full day interview. They're going to ask you the same questions at the dinner the night before, from the minute you get there at 8 a.m. to when you leave at 5. So just be prepared. Like, just be prepared. And you can have the same answer every time. You can change it up, whatever. But like, you know, I think, and it's draining. Like a full day interview is draining, and we know that as a committee. Like, we're not, you know, out to get you. That's the problem. You know, like no one likes it, but it's draining for us too. But yeah, like and again, that job description. We just take that job description and we start asking you, tell us about specific experience with bullet 1, bullet 2. And again, it's someone, and then that's the thing, like, remember, like, I mean, Joe is the most recent one who went through this. Like, you'll talk to one committee, and then you'll turn around 5 minutes later and talk to a different committee of, like, you know, there'll just be, like, 3 different people, but it might be 3 same people from last one. Those 3 different people are going to ask you the same question, like, because they don't know. You just answered them in this last one.
Or there will be one person who was on the previous committee who's on the second one, and they liked your answer.
Yeah, they'll be like, I liked your answer.
And when you are your side of the table, you're learning a lot about those things too, right? The questions that people are asking are on purpose, and that gives you a clue about what's really important to them, where the problem areas are right now. If there are always questions about marketing or use of the service or whatever it is, then you know, oh, that's the thing I'm going to have to deal with, or maybe that's the thing I should start talking about more than I did before.
And, you know, again, I'm sure Megan talked about this story, but, like, we do like it when you ask us questions. and we understand you're fatigued, you know, like, we get it, we feel it, but like, you know, like, it's kind of like, as a committee, you're like, if you just at the end of it are like, no, I'm done, like, you know, we're like, we threw all this stuff at you.
I ask the same questions over and over again.
Yeah, you could, like, depending on the committee, like, that has happened, and that's, like, I think when I interviewed, like, I had some prepared, and then I had, like, a notebook with me, and, like, I took some notes throughout the day. I sometimes flexed it, but, like, if I was really kind of exhausted towards the other day, I was like, let me ask this again. Like, you know, again, but it's just still, I was, like, giving it a go. That 4 o'clock meeting on the last day, I was just like, just roll me out of here. Look at that. Yeah, but, like, yeah, and that was, because I lived in Greensboro, they didn't make me do a tour. So I had a better situation.
They did like I guess it depends on where you're applying to, but I think that's definitely like the full day interview experience is something that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
I had like the agenda, so I knew, but I wasn't prepared for how exhausting.
It's really exhausting.
So
it's really bad. But everyone does it, like, in academic. And also, like, don't be, like, you know, like, wear shoes. You're going to be walking all day long. And I don't know. I mean, I can only speak for UNCG. I can't speak for other universities, but, like, we don't care about your shoes. Like, so, you know, like, but we are going to make you go all around the campus, all around the library. You know, I mean, and the agendas are grueling to make. Like, we can only, like, you know, I worked really hard when I did mine to, like, give breaks, but, like, there's only so, like, you know, if you have to meet with so many committees, lunch, like, it has to work like clockwork, or it all falls apart. It's great.
But what can you describe your, like, on-site or your interview process in the K-12 environment? Did it feel all day like this? Yeah.
No. I would try, like, I hired the first 3 years I was there, I hired 3 different librarians, and then the last one from this program had done an internship there. But it is, you know, it's who we can grab. I'll grab a AP if I can, and do maybe an hour, hour and a half, and make a decision based on that particular interview, but also what, I mean, there's a large, this area produces a large pool of qualified applicants. So it's always a difficult decision because there's more people who are qualified than there are jobs.
Did you do lateral entry?
I did. I took a couple courses here, and then I finished it off through ECU online just because I was working full time and, you know, had teenagers. Like, okay, but yeah, so I was lateral entry and had to get I never got the school library media back when I was here. When I was here, I was like, to be academic or public, never ever once considered going to the school. I love it. It's a lot of fun.
And I have a lot of friends who've done lateral entry too into school media.
Right. It is. It was a good option for me. I made that decision. First I found a school library that I absolutely loved. It was like, if you guys ever hired, I would want to be here. Like, this space just feels good to me, and I want to be in this school. And then it came open. I didn't get that job. Someone else with very similar experiences as I. Like, she and I, like, it's kind of a small library world here. So we all know each other when we're applying for these jobs, and we're talking about the interview process and what happens with that. So, yeah, but then it made me, kind of just open myself to that possibility of getting a job, and I thought, hey, I could, transition from the city to the state system, and I thought at the time I was going from 12 months to 10 months, and what I didn't realize is in the school you do that 12 months, 10 minutes. A little different. The public library was a lot more civilized schedule, but.
I have a question as well. So did either of you do presentations during your job interview process? So it's like an hour, so I figure like it's probably shorter.
I did a case study. Yeah.
So So I have two more questions. So this is, I think the first one is really just to kind of know about, on like a CV, I go ahead and put my list guides on there. Is that, like I just put it under like things that, like what would it best go under? Like I put it under publications right now, but it's not really a publication, but it is published online. Does that make sense?
I feel like the header doesn't really matter so much as the groupings. Like if it said like projects, I would also.
Yeah, projects might be better for me because like publications, if you had that link put in there with like an article you published,
right,
I would be kind of like, ooh, hopefully they understand that, you know, like, you know, that's different, you know, from what we require. But I think also it would depend on if you're applying to a tenure track job or not. Like here at UNC, I think you all know this, we're tenure track, so we require publications.
Right.
If you were, like, you know, when I was at High Point University, like that was not a tenure track job. So I think if I put it under publications or probably they would have cared. They would have liked wherever it was for them to see the products I made. But they didn't care at all about publications or like writing articles. So I think you would just kind of have to like know your audience.
Okay, so it'd be like an audience thing.
Yeah.
But also a clarity thing too.
Yeah, and you could ask that, like, I mean, first off, like every library should make it clear whether they're tenure track or not. Academic library, I mean, you should be able to easily find that on their website. If not, that might be concerning. I mean, and then if it's not clear, definitely ask in the interview, like, what are my expectations? I mean, that's a good question to ask in any job, I think. What are your expectations for professional development? What are your expectations and what are my opportunities for professional development? Because that's really different. Like, you know, I know that like with schools, like, right, y'all have different things, and like here though, like we give you X amount of money, and like you have to, you know, you're expected to travel, you're expected to publish, you're expected to use the money and go out and do that. So, like, we never would be upset if you asked about that in an interview. We'd be happy that you engaged that process. Because if you go to a tenure track place, we always ask about that. We're like, are you prepared? Are you ready to publish? Like, we don't expect you to have a lot of publications, but we do expect you to say, I'm ready to go, like, when I get to this job, right? Like, and we also expect you to have some idea of a research. And we ask you that a lot, right? Like, we don't expect you to be like, here's 5 publications, but we're like, what are some things you might research once you get here? We ask that to everyone. Yeah, like, and that's fine. Like, you can change it. Sure, it's fine. Like, I don't remember what I said. I was like, online learning. That is what I researched.
I would think one of the questions too related to tenure track, because when I came in, I didn't know you know tenure track. I didn't know what faculty did at all. Just I didn't know personally. So they asked about, you know, this is a tenure track position. This means you're doing research and publishing and writing. So I wish that I had more about what tenure track was specifically at this institution, because I've gotten feeling talking to other professionals now that tenure track means different things depending on where you are. So like whether it's like the number of things or the type of things that you have to publish or put out into the world. So I wish I had asked that question more.
And some are stricter than us at UNCG, and some are more loose than us. It just kind of depends. We just recently got ranked at UNCG as professors, so that has shifted our document. You know, Joe came in at a time of a lot of change in what we're doing in terms of how we document it and stuff. So
that's another question asked too, is are there recent changes or something? I don't know how to phrase that question.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you can ask, like, I think, maybe I asked it, or I think I've heard it asked before, but, like, what is one thing you want me to know right off the bat in terms of, like, culture or whatever? Like, that's a good question to ask. And we're going to be honest with you, you know, as honest as we can.
Right. Yeah. You want to make sure that, that the time that you have reserved for asking your questions, you ask the questions that are meaningful to you and to them. So avoid asking questions that you could find the answer to very easily, that are like logistical questions or, you know, just things that you should be able to find out. And particularly in your work, because you should be able to collect information, you really want to avoid that. So in this guide, there's a list of like some questions that will help you think oh, this is the neighborhood of questions that I can ask in general, but you want to be asking a lot of things that are specific to this role, this environment, because hopefully that will show the employer that, oh, I want to be at this place.
We definitely like it. And I think probably this applies to all of us, right, that you've done some research on our institution.
Yes.
Like, and this is no joke, like we've had people come in and just like, obviously they haven't even really looked at our website. You know, and like it's not that much time to prepare for an interview to look at a website. And like the fact that we're going to be asking you to do a lot of stuff on our website, we're not expecting you to be able to come in and like use our materials like that, but just a little bit of research on the website. I think that would be like a huge red flag. And again, I can't think of a job that wouldn't be, you know, like if you at least go to the website and like look, you know, like, and again, I've seen this happen, believe it or not. Yeah, so, yeah.
I like that they had us do a presentation for, I think I got a specific topic specific to the job that I was doing, since GIS the data visit, it was a new position, what will that look like, what is GIS librarianship, so it forced me to look at the website and like really investigate like the mission of the libraries, what are their goals and the student learning objectives they work with, and how do those relate to that specific role and what their bullet points are. Whereas like other things, I guess that would be an extra step if they don't have to do a presentation.
I feel like in getting into the school system, it was my ability to make a space to create that presentation. I mean, they didn't ask for one. But I was like, hey, I really want to show you why I'm the best fit for this job. And be persistent with it and reach out to the specific people, you know, that you know you need to talk to.
And you said this, but like, it's so true. The library world is small. The library world in North Carolina is really small. I mean, it seems like it's big because we have a lot of, you know, library schools, but like, we know each other, you know, and we talk to each other. And so, and that's hopefully good, but it can be bad, you know, like if you create a reputation for yourself. But like, it's good in that, like, it gives you, networking is important. Like, I remember in grad school, they told me that, and I was like, ugh, like, I don't want to do that. But, like, it's true. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily, like, harass people, but, you know, like, if you see someone at a conference that works somewhere that you would one day want to work, like chat with them. You know.
And you've got to make sure that you're making an effort for that to go both ways, because, you know, it's really easy to spot someone who is only coming to you because they need the job.
So I think that this bears repeating, because you were saying it earlier when you were mentioning about what comes to mind when you think of a librarian. And I think it is more important than ever to overcome that stereotype. It is a people-driven skill. And those people skills are going to be what ultimately gets you the job. I mean, figure out the formula to get into the room, but then it's going to be your ability to demonstrate to them that you're, you know, that you are a team player. It doesn't matter if you can say you're a team player, but that if you can have those conversations, that's what everybody wants.
Well, like, and even that, like, you know, like you're like cataloging, like you're still going to work on a team,
right?
You know what I mean? So you can't really use the excuse in an interview like, I'm just going to be cataloging. So, like, you know, that's not real. That's not a job that exists anymore in libraries. If you're going to be a cataloger, you're working with a team of people. You're doing a lot of different things.
Well, think about how many times you and I are in the same space, and our work is
in different departments.
I mean, we're in a lot of the same meetings.
Yeah, we are.
And so it's important to think about who outside of your immediate circle you need to appeal to.
And we bring in people outside of the library to be on committees, and we do that, again, for a reason. We want an outside perspective. We want, maybe they'll see something that we're missing in terms of personality, in terms of the resume, you know, so that's done on purpose, for sure. And UNCG, if you're applying here, I mean, all like Megan and I, are on a meet together, so like we will talk to each other like at the Starbucks.
Good morning.
So this question is more about interviews themselves. No matter how much I've read, I seem to like get people are like, okay, your teaching experience. I'm like, what is that? And so I'm wondering, can you bring like note cards to kind of remind you, like, what is the best way? What are your individual ways of like prepping for an interview so that you're not caught like feeling kind of nervous or whatever, so that you can recall the things that you were actually good at doing?
I actually brought like a notebook.
Okay.
And bullet points. I printed out copies of my resume that I sent in. I printed out.
That's a good idea, to
Yeah.
print out copies of your resume.
Yeah.
I mean, we try to print them out and bring them, but like
I have
sometimes.
my own.
Well, and if you've updated it since, or if there's something that you caught, you want to.
Yeah. And I think at one point I said like I'm gonna take notes as well, but I have this notebook,
Yeah.
No one minds that.
Okay, I wasn't sure about like it. I've been at some jobs where like I pulled out a note card and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I'm.
I mean, I guess it just depends on the culture of the place.
And I think making that effort to acknowledge or to ask, like, okay, if I jot some things down, or just acknowledging that. But for me, when someone does that and I'm interviewing, it indicates real interest, right? I really don't want to screw this up.
Yeah.
And that's, I love that.
I think, maybe having it within a folder or an actual notebook rather than a note card would be better.
Yeah, I would say that.
And then, certainly not the notes on your phone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I will do this, but like, as someone with 2 kids, like, I think I do kind of always like but like, be cautious of that, because that's definitely like, we don't love that. I know for the presentation, if we were hiring you to do a teaching job, right, that we were going to be requiring you to go out and teach often, then I would be a little nervous if I saw you with no cards for your presentation, because a lot of times those interviews, we've had you do a mock teaching session, and we put you in a computer lab, and we want to see you like walking around, engaging us, and but in a committee meeting like this, like it wouldn't bother me to see a notebook or anything. So just again, it kind of depends on your audience. I would say, and it just depends on your personality. Like to me, like there's no such thing as over practicing for an interview. Like when I did this interview, like I knew a lot of librarians. I was working at UNCG. Like I felt good about the job, but I didn't know who I was up against, and I practiced. I like made my husband listen to that presentation, 10 times. By the end, he was just like, "Oh, not again." But but then by the time I got in front of the audience, I was just like, "Let's do this," and I could just flow through it. And I was not asked to do a teaching session though. I was asked to do, even though I teach, they wanted me to talk about like the state of online learning, in libraries. So that was like a different than walking around a computer lab, because sometimes we have you pretend like we're students. Like we're like, we give you the prompt, and we're like, we're all students, in there, and like we have you do a session, like we had our science librarian do that. We had her, give us a session like we called it Bio 100, and we actually gave her an assignment. We took an assignment from Meg Horton in biology and just stripped out made it pretty similar to what she actually was using, and then we had each a 30-minute session on this. And then the first question we asked after that is, if you had longer than 30 minutes, what would you have done? Because typically our shortest one-shots are 50 minutes. Sometimes they're 75 minutes, but we can't really, because of time for questions and stuff, let you do that. So the first question we asked is, if you had 50, what would you have added in? And we tell them that in the prompt. We say, the first question we're going to ask you is this.
What I try to do with my backwards design presentation.
Yeah.
Ag online students. Look, I act like y'all ag.
Yeah. And we don't ever do online components of interviews.
You have the presentations, it shows that you're technologically capable too. We have a projector that tends to bug a lot. Presentations, so learning how to roll with technical issues. And knowing how to use presenter notes. If you have presenter notes, so you
have a plan B. This actually happened not that long ago. The projector just went out in the middle of this person's presentation. The person did great, like, they were just like, okay, let's like, you know, they shifted, I felt so bad. Be prepared, I mean, you know, and you know, like, what are you gonna do? We brought in tech people immediately, but that definitely happened. That's a real story.
As a substitute for your actual presence.
Yeah.
Yeah, my video interview, the sound didn't work, so we were on the phone and looking at each other, and I could have easily freaked out.
Yeah.
And you can't be prepared, right? It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it's like real life.
Yeah, and we're understanding.
Yeah, your reaction.
Like, if you have to, and we said, I think, to that person, like, take a minute.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna call the tech person, and, you know, that kind of stuff, but, that person handled it really well.
I think she, took a minute, she read her slide, summarized it, and then if there were images that she needed to show, she kind of, like, here's this image that y'all can't see, here's what it looks like, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to prove with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were understanding. Wow.
Because that happens.
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately.
Doing kind of pause on the right.
I think even with that one, we had, we had put tech people in there ahead of time to be like, this has been bugged, please make sure this doesn't happen.
Right.
Like having flashbacks.
Yeah.
I wasn't even on that committee.
Or we also
That seems
have
like-
a platform where you can practice virtually with interviews. It's called Interview Stream, and as a student, you have free access to that. You would just create an account with your UNCG email address, but you can take an interview that's pre-made, or you can make one specifically for yourself. So you can say, I know they're going to ask me about these things, so I want to find questions about these things. You do it in front of the webcam, and it will record you, and you can watch it back, which is awkward and it's difficult to do, but it's great because you find out, like, how often am I doing this, or am I pulling my ear when I fill out the questions? Exactly. Yeah. And then you have a choice if you wanted to send that interview to someone, if you wanted to send it to a coach or a mentor, then we can look at it. But we also do in-person healthcare too, and we'll tailor it to the situation that you're looking for. So we'll take a job description and we'll craft an interview based on that description for you.
And we can make those appointments through Handshake?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Honestly, having all of that and being in this panel is already billions of steps above, because I did not take as much advantage of that while I was here. I wish that I had. I feel like I would have been a lot more prepared for the interview process. It worked out at the end.
You made it, yeah.
Awesome that this is happening.
Again, just to say it one more time, the library world is small.
Yeah.
Sure, you definitely all talk.
I had one more question about kind of volunteering, extracurricular kinds of stuff, for example, being part of LISSA. Is it just a line on a CV or a line on a resume, or is it something more, is it based on values more than anything else?
So for me, Morgan, if I'm thinking about how we've interacted, the thing, you're putting this together, you're coordinating with folks. If you were to leave that off, you'd be doing yourself a disservice.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But definitely also. About this, your press, leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely put on it.
And a part of tenure at UNCG is service. So we would the leadership we would like the service element of it. Again, if you left it off, we would be talking about that.
I feel like treat it as if it were a professional experience, where you don't just put that, you volunteer for each other Friday, so exactly the element and how it relates or pertains to it. So if you work with people, that there would get the information through that LIS program, that could be off. But with you directed people, you did reference interviews, and just a stretch that description, right?
And I guess more along the lines of thinking about community service, outside of library world, right? I know the libraries are great, but also that kind of service that we do for organizations that don't have anything to do with libraries, is there a space for that on academic or CV or, and I know on a resume sometimes that bends a little, but is there a space for that, or is that something you just kind of leave off and then you bring up in your cover letter or your interviews?
I would say leave, if it's not to do with libraries or academia, like say you volunteer at a animal shelter, that's something more to bring up in an interview. If it fit into one of your bullets, you know, like we were asking about something that you could fit into that, it could go on a cover letter briefly. I can't think of anyone we've hired recently that had a whole section dedicated to their like service, what they do in the community, but I can think of like in interviews people bringing up, like, you know, because we asked a lot about, not a lot, but like we were like, you know, like what do you do outside of libraries? You know, what do you like to do? And like, you know, not that we're gonna like judge you if you say like I watch Netflix. That's cool, but like I watch tons of Netflix. But like, you know, like if you want to fit it in there, that would be, you know, we'd be like, all right, you know.
And there may be positions that you apply for where their mission includes community involvement or, you know, something like that where you're speaking to the broader company or organization where it can be appropriate.
Okay. These jobs are coming up more and more in academic libraries, but we just hired one. Student success librarians, where we want you to coordinate with student offices and run student programs. That's something where you could maybe have it on your resume or have it on your cover letter to show how you can coordinate with different groups of people. I mean, that was like the whole thing. But, and like I said, that job that we hired Melody for, I mean, there's a reason why we did that. Like more and more libraries are hiring, which means if you apply to those, you're not going to be competing against people who have been doing the job for like 5 years. To me, those are like great jobs to apply for right out of library school. And we hired Melody, you know, for that job without much experience in academic libraries. So like new jobs, that's a great way to try to get in. And usually those jobs don't say 5 years experience, supervisor, like, you know, we don't require that. We didn't require that at all. Like Joe's job was a new job. I'd say it's harder right out of library school to get a job that's like supervision, like has a lot of, like we're saying, like 5 years preferred. You know, even though we say preferred, we mostly mean. I mean, it means that if we can't find anyone with 5 years, we'll give you the phone interview. But you know, in a dream world, we would want it. But yeah, new positions like that are like I think good for people right out of library school. Temporary jobs. I don't believe in that you can't promote yourself from staff. I've heard that rumor before. I don't believe in that, but some other people might disagree with me. Some people say like don't apply to a library job if it's not like, you know, if it's like staff level and not librarian level, but like I say if you want to live in Greensboro and you want to work at an institution, like there's been times more than once at UNCG that we've hired from staff into faculty because they stayed, you know, they were there, they were doing a great job. You know, Kathleen Smith did that. A lot of the people in the archives did that. Amy did that, Amy Harris Hawk. Like it's not uncommon. So if you really want to work somewhere, I don't think that's a bad way to get in.
Thank you so much. I do need to get running, but I really enjoyed being a part of this panel.
Thank you.
Any last-minute questions from the public or school?
Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it. Thanks.
I want you to have access to these handouts. So this one in particular is an interview guide, and it's general information. So if you have anything more specific to the industry, you can certainly ask. If y'all listen to so I'm sure she'll look for it. So there's a reminder here about industry. They don't know how to access it. But I also brought a couple of other things that may be of interest to you or not. One is this long packet, and don't take it if you don't want it. We will have a lot of use for them. But there are 105 different organizations coming to the fair on Wednesday, and I think at face value, not everybody sees how that could match. Right? I think if you maybe had not heard about Charles Harris today, and you did not know that that was an option, maybe do forget that. So if you have a moment, you can look through, and it says the organization, the industry that they classify themselves within, and what they're looking for, what class years, what if they're hiring full-time or internship, et cetera. So this could be interesting to you, I think. And then I know you all got these things, but if you go to cpd.uscg.edu, the CPD is Career and Professional Development, you can find access to all of our electronic resources.
That's linked in our career resource page.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can pretty much find anything, and my name is Megan Walters. I'm the only one on campus, so I would be thrilled to continue the conversation too.
Megan's really great.
Woo!
I didn't have a Megan in grad school. Do y'all have any questions?
I've got one.
Yeah.
In working with the capstone, there's a lot of emphasis on prepare this for job documents.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do you guys look through 30-page projects?
No. Again, that's where you could have a link, like, you know, like you'll know about like Go links, right? Or like tiny URLs. You could have a link, if you link out to something like a WordPress site you've made under projects, I will check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Will I read a 30-page capstone? Probably not, but if you link to me a WordPress site that you've made, if you link to me to a video, LibGuide, something like that, again, under projects, I would definitely hit that up. I would recommend in a resume to use either Go links or tiny URLs. So, because like a lot of times, you know, we printed them out or we're like, look, we can't quickly click on it. If it's hyperlinked, we don't know. So a Go link or a tiny URL, maybe a tiny URL. I mean, I don't know. I use Go links because I'm like, I'm here. Go.uscg, I'm like, whatever. But tiny URLs are good and free.
I feel like if one of those SLOs that you're addressing on your capstone, like site, I'm trying to remember mine has like the different pages for each one. If it addresses like a very specific component of your job, like say you'll be working with new technology in the library as like a tech services librarian, then I think if it's in the cover letter saying like in my capstone, I highlighted this portion of working with technology, and then if you link to that capstone in your project, I might be more interested in, you know, checking out that specific one, but I'd rather just get a summary of it.
Yeah, like I think it's okay to say a capstone topic.
Yeah.
Title, I would like to see that. Like at my grad school, we had like, they were like mini, I would call them like mini dissertations. So I think on my resume out of grad school, I had on there like dissertation topic, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know. But it's about archives. Yeah, I'm not working in archives, so I took it off. That's the thing. Like my resume has like shifted so much in the last 10 years. As y'all
You had a different resume for every different job that I
and that's okay. That's okay. You know, when I was even like after I got a couple jobs, I would like I'd have different copies, right? I had like a major template that had everything, and then depending on what it was, I would go in and cut things off.
Yeah.
I didn't have any. Yeah, that's recommend. Like I said,
That's what I typically do too.
Yeah, that's recommend. Yeah, like I said, as an academic job, I would like to see what your capstone was about. I know a lot of y'all are making websites, making LibGuides, that kind of stuff. Again, that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. Like we look at your LibGuides. If you don't provide links to us, we will find them. So even if you're trying to hide them, I would say unpublish them. Like no joke. I mean, we can find something. Like this has actually happened recently. Like someone made something that like, you know, completely duplicated a museum website. You know, LibGuide and published it, and like the museum emailed us, you know, and we were like, what's going on? You know, I'm saying like, so be careful of that kind of stuff too. Like if you made something, be like, there's no copyright issue or like anything. Like we'll find that. The internet, we didn't work the internet.
Only for education purposes.
You can do, if you do that, like make it very clear. You know, because like the public is gonna find it, or like we're gonna find it. If you don't want us to find it, like again, unpublish it. Like I work with a class in LIS. They make a website, and we tell them, we're like, you're welcome to use this. You know, put it on your resume, use it for your job. Like, but be prepared. Like this is a live website, so like be ready that people are gonna start finding this. So we recommend that if they don't want that after the class over, to unpublish it.
And certainly that that is true of any social sites too, right? MySpace is still out there.
Yeah, we do like we do a quick Google search. So that's why like your LinkedIn, if it came into there, I'm not going to do a deep dive on like your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever, but if there's something like right up top that's coming up in Google searches or whatever, that, yeah, we would be concerned.
There's so many people with my name that I usually don't come up until the third or fourth.
And we would know that. We would know, like, you know, we're versed enough in the internet.
So I hear a lot, and I guess, you know, I know we're running over time, but one of the things that I hear a lot is like if you don't have social media or something like that, you seem suspicious to your. Okay,
I don't believe that.
fantastic.
For academia. That's what my husband works in the funeral industry, and he doesn't have any social media, and they keep telling him that. Looking like he's just like that. It's fine. He's fine. And also, like, I would not judge you at all.
Okay.
We don't. That's not a part. Remember, like, you know, like we have to be very meticulous. Yeah. That never it comes up that we had any kind of bias. We follow rubric. Yeah. Like to the T. So like that we would never put on the rubric Facebook. Yeah. You know, question mark. Like, you know, we would never do that. And so if that ever came up in a committee meeting, we would be like, take that away. You know,
but there certainly are environments where that would happen, right? So remember that is specific to the academic experience at UNCG, and maybe somebody else somewhere else has thought differently about ethics, or their process is very different, or they're at a private institution or a private company, and that is different, right? So they can, and you can take anything.
And if the job description says, like, you will be managing social media accounts, which academic jobs say that, and is part of academic jobs, as well as, I would guess, other jobs. Like, if that says it, then but that's only an example of where I would have that on a rubric. Right. Right, because it's in the job description that you would be managing social media accounts. So you have to.
You use Twitter specifically in one of your internships, so if you mention that in your...
So I can just reference that, but
But
I hear
if
that
you
all
reference it,
the
they're going to look
time,
for it.
which is like, if you don't have social media, then you are suspicious to the people that are looking for you, and I'm like, I'm tired of hearing it, but I just want to make sure.
I mean, I can only speak for UNCG, but no, we wouldn't find that suspicious.
I feel like if it's a job where they do find it suspicious, maybe that's not a job you might want. I would think.
And like I said, if it's a job like you know, like if it's a job that says that, you know, be sure to point out on your resume or cover letter, like, you know, like I use Twitter in this way for work. And that, to me, that would be like check, rubric. You know, again, this rubric is very light. We go through it, check. I think it's a scale of 1 to 4, you know, like whatever. So, and it's like it's a spreadsheet that adds it up, and then we take the top 5. It's very mathematical to get an interview. Once past the interview, once you get to the interview, that's when you show us context. Phone interviews are also pretty mechanical. I mean, they have to be, because we have 30 minutes. We record them. We ask like a set of questions, and then, you know, there's not a lot of like get and take because you're on the phone. Yeah. Even now, if they were on like WebEx or something, it would be the same way.
In my EPA job previously, which was biology, not library science, but I worked a lot with data science in their lab notebooks and I was digitizing. So like that one, they had us record the interview and send in files, like MP3s of us answering the questions. So I'm not really sure.
That's a really good point. There are, and there are industries that are moving toward that, right, to save time or money or whatever it is. That you, so like the interview stream platform I described, that you would do that and email your interview to someone.
I actually don't hate that idea. That would save us a lot of time.
Because the city does that now. So if you apply for a public library, you have to do like a video interview before you get it. Just learned that yesterday.
Another thing is you get an interview, if you get a phone interview. I understand, like, we're all busy people, but, like, be as flexible as possible with the times. Like, to me, it's, like, a huge red flag if you're not willing to compromise a little bit. Like, if you're just, like, I could only, like, that phone interview that was so bad that I mentioned before, like, one of her things is she was, like, she gave us all these rules for the phone interview, and we were like, oh, no. Like, you know, like, she was like, I can meet at this time, like, and we were like, oh, I don't like, and because, you know, this is a committee of like at least six people that are also very busy. Like the logistics of this are a nightmare. So just be flexible with us, like, please. Like, you know, if you get to the in-person and they say like, provide us 3 dates, like please provide 3 days, like, you know, provide. Don't just be like, I'm only available this one day. And we're also, like, we understand too, like, there has been more than one, even when you were here, right, like where a hurricane happened, snowstorm, hurricanes and snowstorms are the big ones that come to mind, and we'll reschedule. We're not like.
I think it's discouraged too, if you don't hear back from one. Like, I did not have this experience because I got extremely lucky with the positions that were open when I came out of grad school, but like I know colleagues who have like applied and finally got one, but it took them a very long time.
I mean, if you want to talk to Melody is one of those people.
You have to think about what's going on that you have no control over, like all the people out there. Another thing that I would encourage you to think about is the second you say, oh, I'm ready to look for a job, your mind says, I'm job searching. And so you could be in that mode for 6 months and have applied for one job and you feel as exhausted as if you had been applying for many jobs. And so it's my hope is that, you know, if I sit down with someone and I'm thinking about your interview strategy, think of small tasks that you can accomplish, even if they're not actual interviews. So updating your documents, practicing an interview, reaching out to someone for networking, making a spreadsheet that tracks all of your things. Having something that you can say you've done, it makes you feel like the exhaustion is worth it, right? Or the energy is worth it. But there's too many people I know that are just like, I'm job searching, and they actually don't.
Yeah, I mean, and this, remember, like, when we bring in interviews, we always are bringing in 2 to 3 candidates, which means, you know, more than half, a lot of times, are not getting a job. A lot of times, they have applied for other jobs and gotten it. You know, like, so again, don't think that because you didn't get it one time means you're never going to get it at UNCG. It just means, like, you don't know, like, the qualifications who you're up against. And also, like, even if you hear a rumor, like, oh, there's an internal candidate, like, still go. You know what I mean? And, like, give it your go, because A, it's good practice, and B, you got in front of that place, and they got to see you, hopefully, at your best. Like, and that's happened to me, like, you know, like, that we're, like, people, you know, again, the library a little small, just be like, they're like, you're not getting this. Like, I'm like, well, I'm just going to go. Like, try it. And they, you know, I don't regret anything.
I got a question. This may not be applicable right now, but applying for a technician position, kind of starting out, someone with the LIS versus someone that's just graduated, someone's already got it. How does that go?
You're talking about like a staff job versus a librarian job?
Like
with an MLS versus no MLS?
Yeah, like if I was applying for a tech job right now versus someone that's already.
So the whole process is different. You know, like, so the only time we do this full day interview committee, like make you go through phone interviews, is for these like faculty librarian jobs. For, you know, what you're calling technician, staff jobs, a lot of times those are like what Jen was talking about, like 1-hour interviews, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, we, even then, like they might have a committee of like 3, and you might come in for like a couple hours, but it's a different process. The only reason I've ever heard of anyone like being concerned about MLS is that usually if you have an MLS and you're applying for like a technician job, it means you don't want to stay there. Right, and you know, we know that there's going to be turnover, and usually, I can't speak for everyone, again, everyone's different in their opinions. If it's me, I'm like, that's okay, I'll just rehire again, you know, when this person improves themselves. But again, I'm not, you know, I'm one, like a lot of times these aren't like these kind of committees and they use a rubric, it's like more like, what do y'all think? Kind of like what Jen was talking about, who do you know kind of deal. I know that if you work at I mean, this doesn't apply to y'all, but we get a lot of applicants from student workers into these technician jobs because, you know, like you can get an MLS for free or any, you know, master's degree for free while you're working. And because they've already been here, a lot of times they just float into the job. And again, that's just dependent upon the job. But like at a different university, like A&T, High Point, or Imperial College, like it's not going to be the same like army of student workers that we have here. But again, it just depends. For me, I've hired people with MLSs for staff jobs, knowing that they're gonna go on to other jobs and just say, well, that happens, I'll hire someone. Because those jobs typically have turnover anyway.
Yeah, if you can, just anticipate what are the reasons that someone may be concerned about this, or what would be the flag, you know, so if I'm thinking in our world, if we require a certain level of education and someone applies and they have way more, the things that I think about are, like, we probably can't afford them, so I'm not gonna even give it a go. But if somebody applies for a job and they can if they can ease my concerns through their cover letter, or they made the story for, I'm relocating to Greensboro because my partner is blah, blah, blah. This is the kind of work I want to do, and I've been trying to get to.
And a cover letter is a great place for that in your interview. Like, we've had more than one person have childcare, you know, like they left the field because of childcare, and you're like, cover letter is a great place to explain that, right? Because if you see a resume and you see a 10-year gap, we're going to be like, what's going on? You know, but then in your cover letter, you say it's because of these issues or this childcare or whatever. We're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Like, now I get it.
And like, I think some people are sometimes concerned. They're like, I don't need to put any of my personal life in there. But if I mean, we're people, and it affects our story. And so when it's appropriate, when you're trying to explain something, there's no harm in it whatsoever.
Yeah, and the opposite, like you said, like, it would be like, sometimes we get people with PhDs who apply for jobs that the requirements is MLS. Like I said, the only concern of that would be like, are you, the only thing about that we would say is like, you know, like to me, my assumption of that would be like, oh, you're probably trying to be your one day, which to me, no problem. But like, you have to find a way in your cover letter to show what you want in this job right now. Like, you know, so that I don't think you're just trying to hop quickly to another job. That's the thing. That's the kind of thing we think, right? With that, if you have an overqualification, which happens, if we just think we're going to lose you right away. Because we're not going to be able to give you what you want based on salary, based on whatever. You can tell us why.
Because like, human nature, we make a lot of assumptions. Right. Oh, you must have $50 in the cash drawer. Right. I'm just thinking about my own, what I've experienced, and I'm putting that onto you. Do you want to keep up from doing that to you?
And it's like that. Once you explain it, I'm like, okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, I personally hired people with MLSs for staff jobs. That, you know, and again, the interview would be where you would explain to me why you want a staff job over another job open somewhere else. Because, I mean, you know, when you own it, like, sometimes people can't leave Greensboro, sometimes people can't, I do what you guys do. What's wrong with that?
Sometimes you do MLS for personal fulfillment, right? This is the information about that helping career fair that I mentioned. Lots of school systems will be here, other helping professions, so you probably find some stuff that would probably be there. But if you're interested in that too,
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Taking
your time.
My kids were very excited to have it.
Just want to give
It's right next to Amy.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, I know what you're doing. I don't like to assume.
No, mine's like, I used to be a Melody, but it's like Amy, me, Leah.
I know about your office because when you came to LI 628, and I could tell based on the